A day after my husband and I tied the knot, the restaurant manager called me and said, "We were double-checking the security footage. You need to see this in person. Come alone, and don't say a word to your husband." Welcome to the Twists of Fate channel. Before we begin, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. We're really curious to know. We hope you enjoy listening to this gripping story. Samara opened her eyes, and the first thing she saw was the white ceiling of the bedroom flooded with morning light. She stretched, smiled, and turned her head. Next to her, with an arm thrown wide, slept Jovan, her husband. Husband. The word still sounded unusual, but it warmed her soul. Yesterday was their day, their wedding. Samara quietly slipped out from under the quilt, threw on a silk robe, and walked to the kitchen. She clicked on the electric kettle, took the remains of the wedding cake, 3 tiers with cream roses that everyone had praised, out of the fridge, sat at the table, broke off a piece of sponge cake, and closed her eyes. Yesterday evening replayed in her mind like a movie reel. The restaurant, the Velvet Garden, had a cozy courtyard, small and family-owned, with about 20 tables. She and Jovan had spent a long time choosing the spot and settled on this one, intimate, homey, without any pretentious airs. There were about 40 guests, only the closest circle, parents from both sides, a few friends, Samara's colleagues from the elementary school, Jovan's buddies from the auto shop where he worked as a master mechanic, and of course, the bridesmaids, Tanisha, Ebony, and Lanice. Samara remembered how her father walked her down the aisle. Pops was in a sharp suit he had clearly bought specifically for this day, fighting back tears the whole way down. "You look so beautiful, baby girl," he whispered as they paused at the arch, decorated with white roses and greenery. And then there was the moment she saw Jovan standing at the end of the aisle between the rows of chairs. He looked at her as if he were seeing her for the first time. His eyes were shining, a smile trembling on his lips, tall, broad-shouldered, looking like a prince in his deep blue suit. They had met 6 months ago, funny to remember, in a downtown bookstore. Samara was choosing curriculum guides for her lessons, and he was standing in the automotive magazine section. She accidentally bumped him with her elbow when she was reaching for a book on the top shelf. "Excuse me," she muttered, turning red.
"You're good," he laughed.
"Let me get that for you before you bring the whole stack down on yourself." He got the book down, handed it to her, then asked, "You a teacher, right?" "How did you guess?" "By the look." "My homeroom teacher had that same strict but kind look." They started talking right there, between the shelves. Then he walked her to her car, asked for her number, and called that same evening. And it took off. Dates, walks through the city at night, dinners together. Jovan turned out to be attentive and caring. He always asked how her day went and brought coffee to her job when Samara had a tough week with state testing. A month later, he said, "I'm serious about this. I want you to be my wife." Samara laughed then. "We barely know each other." "So we'll get to know each other," he answered. "But I already know you're the one. Maybe it's fast, but I feel it."
Mama was surprised.
"Samara, baby, are you sure? 6 months is such a short time." But Samara felt it. Yes, she was sure. With Jovan, it was easy, calm, secure. He didn't play games, didn't drag things out, didn't mess with her head. Everything was honest, grown up. He proposed 4 months in at the park by the fountain without any extra witnesses, a simple ring with a small stone, but sincere. "Marry me. I promise to make you happy." Samara took a sip of tea and looked at the wedding band on her finger. Gold, thin with an engraving inside. Samara plus Jovan forever. He had the same one. They picked them out together at a jeweler's workshop, arguing playfully, laughing, trying on different styles. In the end, they took the simplest ones. No diamonds, no filigree. "The main thing is that they're ours," Jovan had said then. Yesterday at the wedding, there was a moment Samara would remember forever. The newlyweds' first dance, a slow R&B ballad, "You Are My Lady," was playing. Jovan held her by the waist, pulled her closer, and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for being here. I'm the happiest man on earth." Samara's breath caught. She pressed closer to him, feeling his heartbeat. The guests around them smiled. Someone was recording on a phone, and for the two of them in that moment, it seemed they were alone in the entire universe. Then there was the dance with her father. Pops shifted awkwardly from foot to foot. He had never known how to dance. "Sorry, baby, for stepping on your toes," he muttered. "Pops, it's all good." Samara soothed him, hugging him by the shoulders. He was shorter than Yovan and she had to lean down a little. "You're a married woman now," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Take care of yourself. If anything happens, you know where Mama and I are. Always." Samara nodded, unable to speak. A lump squeezed her throat. It was a special moment, Daddy's little girl's last dance before she finally stepped into a new life. The guests partied until late in the evening. Line dances, toasts, songs. At the table, Yovan held her hand, occasionally kissing her temple. His friends told tall tales from the auto shop. Samara's colleagues reminisced about school stories, and Lainey's was constantly hovering nearby. She was always so loud, bright, noticeable. A tall, light-skinned woman with long legs and a knack for wearing tight dresses. They had been friends since college, although to be honest, Samara never felt a special closeness. Lainey's was the type who loved to be the center of attention, catching admiring glances, flirting left and right. But she had to invite her to the wedding. She was an old friend, after all. Samara remembered how Lainey's, at some point in the evening, hugged Yovan by the shoulders and laughed loudly at something he said. "Good job finding our Samara," she said loudly so everyone could hear. "Take care of her. She's gold." Yovan smiled and nodded. At the time, it seemed to Samara like normal, friendly playing around. Lainey's always hugged everyone like that, kissed cheeks, hung on arms. It was just her character. The apartment they were living in now, or rather, the one they had crossed the threshold of together last night after the wedding, was Samara's. A two-bedroom in a nice neighborhood on the 4th floor of a sturdy brick building, inherited from her grandmother 3 years ago. Grandma had worked as an accountant her whole life. She was neat, thrifty, and saved every dime. She bought this apartment back in the 90s when prices were laughable, and before she passed, she signed it over to her only granddaughter. "Let you have your own little nest," Grandma said then, lying in the hospital. "Don't sell it, baby.
Keep it."
Samara didn't even think of selling. She did a little renovation, put up light wallpaper, changed the furniture in the living room, and installed new cabinets in the kitchen. It turned out cozy, homey. When Yovan first came to visit her, he immediately noted, "It feels warm here, like real warm." He was renting a studio apartment on the outskirts himself, saying he was saving up for something of his own, but he hadn't managed it yet. A mechanic's salary wasn't exactly 6 figures. When they got married, the housing question resolved itself. "Move in with me," Samara said. "Why should you pay rent if we have a place to live?" Yovan agreed, without hesitation. She worked as an elementary school teacher at Lincoln Elementary. For the 2nd year, she was leading the 3rd grade class, 25 rascals she loved with all her heart. The salary wasn't astronomical, of course, but it was stable. Plus, Grandma's apartment meant no paying a mortgage or rent. They could live peacefully, without struggling. Samara never strove for luxury. Simple joys were enough for her. Good books, Sunday walks, family dinners. The sound of footsteps behind her brought her back to reality. Yovan walked out of the bedroom, disheveled, in just his boxers and a tank top. He yawned, stretched, and scratched the back of his head. "Good morning, wifey," he said with a smirk, and leaned down to kiss the top of her head. "Good morning, husband," Samara replied, and leaned down to kiss the top of her head. "Good morning, husband," Samara replied, feeling a smile spread across her face. "You want tea?" "Yeah." "Why are you up so early?" "You could have slept more."
"Couldn't."
Too many emotions. He sat opposite her, took a piece of cake right with his hands, and took a bite. "Yesterday was dope, right?" he said with his mouth full. All the guests left happy. Mr. Sterling from the restaurant even said, "We had one of the most fun weddings." "Yeah, it was great," Samara agreed. "Everyone tried their best, had fun. Even Pops danced." "Your dad's all right. He's a good man." "I'm glad he accepted me." "He accepted you right away."
"He said you were solid."
Yovan chuckled, finished his tea, and stood up. "All right, I'm gonna hit the shower." Then I gotta run somewhere. Swing by the shop. The boss called, said an urgent job came in. You don't mind? No, of course not. Go ahead. He went into the bathroom, and Samara was left alone in the kitchen. Silence. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the distant noise of cars outside the window. She looked at the phone lying on the table. 5 minutes to 11. Strange that no one had called yet. Usually after such events, friends and relatives start calling first thing in the morning to ask how things are and share impressions. And then the phone came to life. The screen lit up. Unknown number. Samara frowned and picked up. Hello? Hello, Mrs. Samara Hayes? A male voice sounded, a bit formal but polite. Yes, this is she. Who is this? This is Otis Sterling, the manager of the Velvet Garden. We hosted your wedding yesterday. Oh, hello. Samara brightened. Thank you again. Everything was organized wonderfully. Don't mention it, but I'm not calling about that. The manager's voice became more serious, even tense. Mrs. Hayes, I have a very delicate question for you. Yes. Samara became alert. Did something happen? You see, we were double-checking the security camera footage this morning. We had a small issue with the system beforehand, so the tech came to check if everything was okay, and he stumbled upon something. In short, we discovered something on the recording. It concerns your event. The recording? Samara asked again, not understanding. What do you mean, Mr. Sterling? I can't talk about this over the phone. You need to see this in person. Believe me, I wouldn't disturb you if it wasn't important. Samara's heart started beating faster. Dozens of thoughts raced through her head. Maybe someone stole something or the guests got into a fight. But no. The evening had passed calmly. Everyone left peacefully. Okay, she spoke slowly.
I can come by.
When? The sooner the better.
I'll be here all day.
And one more thing, Mrs. Hayes. He paused again. Please come alone. Don't say anything to your husband. This is important. What? Samara even half rose from her chair.
Why?
What is on that recording?
Come.
You'll see everything yourself. I'll be waiting for you in the office. Just trust me. You need to see this yourself first. He said goodbye and hung up. Samara froze with the phone in her hand, staring into the void. Suddenly, her soul felt anxious, uncomfortable. What kind of strange conversation was that? Why did she have to go alone? And most importantly, what was on that tape? The sound of water came from the bathroom. Jovan had turned on the shower. Samara swallowed, feeling her mouth go dry. Maybe it was some mistake? Maybe the manager mixed something up? But the tone of his voice was serious, even alarmed. People don't say things like that for no reason. She remembered yesterday evening, replaying every moment in her memory. Everything was good, right? Jovan was nearby. They danced, laughed, accepted congratulations. Lainey, of course, had a bit too much to drink and flirted with everyone in sight, but that was normal behavior for her. Samara didn't notice anything strange. Or maybe. Samara frowned. There was a moment when she danced with her father for a long time, 10 minutes for sure. Jovan had stepped away somewhere. She didn't see him at that moment. Then he returned, said he stepped out to make a work call. But back then, it didn't seem suspicious. Her head started spinning. Samara stood up, paced the kitchen, and sat back down. She had to go. She had to see what was on that recording or she would go crazy with guessing. Jovan came out of the shower, cheerful, fresh, with wet hair. Listen, I'm going to get dressed quick and head to the shop. I'll be back by lunch. We can eat together. Okay, Samara nodded, trying to keep her voice steady. I'll probably go to my friend's too, Tanisha's. She forgot her purse at our place yesterday. It was a lie, but Samara couldn't find another explanation. She couldn't tell the truth. The restaurant manager called and ordered me to come urgently to watch some tape, but without you. That would sound insane.
Okay.
Jovan pecked her on the cheek and went to get dressed. 20 minutes later, he left. Samara remained alone, sat on the sofa, and wrapped her arms around her knees. The anxiety grew with every minute. What if there was something bad there? What if? No, she didn't even want to think about it. She dressed quickly, jeans, sweater, jacket, grabbed her purse and keys, and left the apartment. Her soul felt lousy. Her hands were shaking as she pressed the elevator button. Everything inside screamed, "Don't go. Don't look. Don't do it." But curiosity and fear simultaneously pulled her forward. The restaurant was a 20-minute drive away. Samara got behind the wheel of her old sedan, also Grandma's legacy, and drove. The road seemed endless. She turned on the radio, but the music irritated her, and she turned it off. Silence pressed on her ears. When she pulled up to the Velvet Garden, the parking lot was empty. The restaurant only opened in the evenings. During the day, it was usually closed, but the door was slightly ajar. Samara walked inside. The same hall, the same tables decorated yesterday with flowers and ribbons.
Now all of that was cleared away.
Just bare tables stood there. Chairs were upturned with their legs in the air. They were preparing to mop the floors. Mrs. Hayes. Otis Sterling came out from behind the bar. A man in his 50s, wearing glasses, with a neatly trimmed beard. He looked tired, as if he hadn't slept all night. "Hello," Samara said quietly. "I'm here. What did you want to show me?" He silently nodded toward the service corridor. "Let's go. Better you sit down before watching." Mr. Sterling led Samara down a narrow corridor past the kitchen and utility rooms. It smelled of cleaning supplies and something musty, probably from the storage rooms. They reached a small office at the end of the hall. Inside stood an old desk and 2 chairs. Last year's calendar hung on the wall. On the desk was a laptop with a large screen. "Sit down, please." The manager nodded at a chair. He remained standing, arms crossed over his chest. "Mrs. Hayes, I want to say right away I feel very awkward about all this. I thought maybe I shouldn't show you. Just forget it. But then I decided you need to know the truth. Better now than later, when it will be even worse." "You're scaring me," Samara whispered. Her hands clenched into fists on their own. "What is on the recording?" He sighed, pulled the laptop closer to her, and grabbed the mouse. "We have security cameras in the restaurant. In the main hall there are 3 for safety, to monitor guests and staff. But there is 1 more camera in the supply room, where inventory, dishes, and food stocks are kept. We installed it after some expensive equipment was stolen 2 years ago. The camera hangs in the corner, almost unnoticeable. Guests usually don't go there, but yesterday, he stumbled. Anyway, see for yourself." He clicked the mouse. A frame appeared on the screen. A black and white recording, slightly grainy but clear enough. The camera angle was from above, showing the whole room. The supply room turned out to be a small space of about 10 square feet, cluttered with metal shelves, holding boxes, stacks of plates, pots. In the far corner, mops, buckets. To the left against the wall, an old sofa, apparently for the staff if they needed a break. The time stamp on the recording, 9:43 p.m. Well, yesterday, during the wedding, Samara remembered this moment. Around 10 o'clock in the evening, she was dancing with her father. A slow song. Pops was holding her hand, awkwardly shifting from foot to foot. On the screen, the supply room door opened. A woman walked in. Tall, light hair, loose over her shoulders, tight red dress. Samara recognized her instantly. Lainey's, the bridesmaid. She glanced over her shoulder as if checking to see if anyone was coming, then stepped inside. A second later, a man appeared in the doorway. Broad shoulders, dark suit, familiar walk. Jovan. Samara froze. Her breath caught. She stared at the screen without blinking, feeling everything inside compress into a tight ball. On the recording, Jovan closed the door behind him. Lainey's turned to him, said something. There was no sound yet. The camera recorded only the image. He stepped closer. She put her hands on his chest. He hugged her by the waist, and in the next second they were kissing. Not a quick, accidental kiss. A long, deep, passionate one. Lainey's ran her fingers through his hair, pulled him closer. Jovan pressed her against the shelving unit. His hands slid down to her hips. They kissed the way people kiss who have wanted this for a long time. The way lovers kiss. Samara couldn't tear her gaze away from the screen. This wasn't real. This couldn't be the truth. But the picture didn't lie. Her husband, who yesterday swore loyalty to her, who kissed her in front of all the guests, who whispered, "You and me forever," was right now kissing another woman. And not just another woman, her friend, her bridesmaid. On the recording, they broke away from each other. Jovan said something, smirked. Lainey's laughed, throwing her head back. Then they sat down together on the sofa. Lainey's took cigarettes out of a small purse, handed him one. They lit up, talking. Samara saw only their lips, gestures. "I'm turning on the sound now," Mr. Sterling said quietly. "The camera records audio too, but with a delay." The tech synced the system.
He turned the volume knob.
Voices came from the laptop speakers, first indistinct, then clearer. "Thought I wasn't going to make it," Lainey's was saying, taking a drag of the cigarette. "Watching you dance with her all night, kissing her. Damn, Jovan, my nerves almost snapped." "Come on now," Jovan answered, hugging her by the shoulders. "Just hold on a little longer. Everything is going according to plan." "According to plan?" Lainey scoffed. "And what about me? When she whispers to me, 'Thank you for being here, bestie,' it makes me want to throw up." "Don't throw up," he chuckled. "You're an actress. Played it perfectly. Maid of honor, indeed." Lainey's grimaced. "Listen, how much longer do we have to play this comedy? When are you finally going to divorce her?" Samara felt the earth slipping from under her feet. She sat, digging her fingers into the edge of the desk, unable to move. The words hit her like hammer blows. "Don't rush," Jovan said on the screen. "We gotta do everything smart. First, she puts my name on the deed. Then we wait 3 or 4 months so there's no suspicion. And then we can divorce. The condo stays with me and you, and I will live it up like we wanted." "What if she doesn't sign it over?" Lainey sasked. "She will," Jovan said confidently. "I already started working on her, telling her, like, let's put everything in both our names, so I feel like a real head of the household. She thinks it's about equality and marriage. Gullible fool. Give it 2 weeks, and she'll run to the county clerk herself." Lainey's laughed, a ringing, cynical sound. "Damn, you're a genius. Seriously? Making a teacher fall in love with you turned out to be easier than easy." "Well, why not?" Jovan shrugged. "She was lonely, no man, works at the school for pennies, lives a boring life. Here I come, good-looking, attentive, giving flowers, compliments. She fell right into my hands." "True enough." Lainey's put out her cigarette on the floor. "And I thought at first you really fell for her. When you told me you were marrying her, I was like, what the hell?" "Oh, drop it, Lainey's." Jovan pulled her closer, kissed her neck. "You know I love only you. Samara is just a way to solve our housing problems. She has a condo downtown, 2 bedrooms, paid off. We sell it, buy ourselves something nice, and live off the rest." "You sure she won't smell a rat?" Lainey's grew alert. "Nah, she won't. She's naive. Believes every word. Yesterday, I told her I want kids with her. She almost cried from happiness."
He smirked. "Kids?"
"Damn, having kids with her? That's a nightmare. She's such a bore. On time, passed exams first, didn't go to parties, snooze fest, but she has a good apartment," Jovan concluded. "And that's the main thing." They fell silent. Then Lainey's turned to him, put her hand on his knee. "Listen, can we meet normally later without all this hiding?" "Of course. As soon as I file for divorce. We move in together immediately. Maybe even get married if you want." "I want to," she smiled. "I've wanted to be your wife for a long time, a real one, not like that dummy sitting out there in the hall rejoicing that she got married." Jovan laughed, hugged her. They kissed again, long, greedily. Samara looked at the screen, and something inside her was tearing apart. Tears flowed down her cheeks on their own. She didn't even notice them. Everything she heard, every word, every phrase hit the sore spot. This couldn't be her Jovan, but it was him. His voice, his laugh, his gestures, everything real. On the recording, they sat a little longer, then stood up. Lainey's fixed her hair, looked into a small mirror from her purse. "I gotta go back, or Tanisha will start looking for me," she said. "Go, I'll come out in a couple of minutes, so we aren't together." "Okay." Lainey's pecked him on
"Okay."
Lainey's pecked him on the lips one last time. "Love you. Love you too."
She left.
Jovan remained alone, smoked another cigarette, looked at his phone, then took out a comb, fixed himself up, straightened his tie, and walked out of the supply room.
The door closed.
An empty room remained on the screen. Mr. Sterling pressed pause. The silence in the office was ringing. Samara sat motionless, staring at the screen. Tears dripped onto her hands, onto her jeans, but she didn't wipe them away. She couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't think. Inside was emptiness. Black.
Cold.
I am very sorry, the manager said quietly. I know this is terrible, but I thought you had to see this, otherwise this person would continue to deceive you. Samara was silent. Words were stuck in her throat. She tried to comprehend everything she had just heard and seen. Jovan didn't love her. Never loved her. Everything was a lie from the very beginning. The bookstore, the date, the proposal. It was all a performance. He played the role of a man in love to get her apartment. And Lainey's her friend, or rather the one she considered a friend. They laughed at her together, built plans on how they would deceive her and dump her. Mrs. Hayes, the manager, called, "Can I get you some water?" She slowly raised her eyes to him. His face was full of sympathy. He stood nearby holding a glass of water he had already managed to pour. "Thank you," she rasped out and took the glass. She took a sip. The water was cold, burned her throat. "How long is this recording?" "About 7 minutes. I showed you everything. Can I save it to a flash drive or my phone?" Mr. Sterling nodded. "Of course, I have a flash drive. I'll copy it right now." He inserted a flash drive into the laptop, opened a folder, dragged the file. Samara sat and looked at one point. Thoughts slowly began to line up in her head, at first chaotic, fragmentary, then clearer. And with every second, something new grew inside her. Not just pain, not just resentment, anger,
Rage.
a burning, sharp desire to answer back, to get revenge. They thought she was a fool, a naive teacher who was easy to wrap around a finger, who would believe any fairy tale about love, who would give everything she had because she was too trusting. And then they would just throw her away like a useless thing and laugh at her. But they were wrong. Samara clenched her fists. The tears dried up. In their place appeared something cold, hard, resolve. "Here, it's ready," Mr. Sterling said, handing her the flash drive. "The recording is on it. If you need anything else, just ask. I'm ready to help." Samara took the flash drive, squeezed it in her palm. "Thank you," she said, looking him in the eyes. "Thank you for showing me the truth. Don't mention it. I couldn't stay silent. I have a daughter myself, and if that happened to her, I would want someone to tell her." Samara nodded, stood up. Her legs felt like cotton, but she forced herself to walk. She left the office, walked down the corridor through the restaurant hall. Mr. Sterling walked her to the door. "Be careful," he said in parting, "and if anything comes up, call." "Okay." She got into the car, closed the door, sat behind the wheel, and just sat there looking through the windshield. The flash drive lay on the passenger seat next to her purse. A small piece of plastic on which all the truth was recorded. All the lies. Her whole life for the last 6 months was one big fake. Samara started the engine. She didn't know where to go. She didn't want to go home. Jovan was there. Or rather, a person she didn't know where to go. She didn't want to go home. Jovan was there. Or rather, a person she didn't know anymore would be waiting there. A person with her husband's face, but with a stranger's rotten soul. She just drove through the city streets, past shops, bus stops, parks. People walked on the sidewalks, laughed, talked on phones. Ordinary life. But inside her, everything had collapsed. Half an hour later, she stopped at a small park, killed the engine, took out her phone, looked at the screen. 2 missed calls from Jovan. "Where you at?" "I'm already home waiting for you." Another message from Tanisha. "What's up, wifey? Everything good?" Samara locked the phone, put it back in her purse. She got out of the car, walked down the alley. The cold wind whipped her hair, but she didn't care. She reached a bench, sat down, looked at the bare trees, at the gray sky. She thought she could just leave, pack her things, move to her parents, file for divorce, forget this person like a nightmare. But something inside resisted. They wanted to humiliate her, deceive her, use her. They wanted to steal her apartment, her life, and after all that, just walk away unpunished. No, that won't happen. Samara took out her phone, opened contacts again, found her father's number, pressed call. Samara opened contacts again, found her father's number, pressed call. Samara, Pop's voice was alarmed. Why aren't you home? Pops, her voice trembled, but she pulled herself together. I need your help. Can I come over right now? Of course, baby girl. Come over. Did something happen? I'll tell you when I see you. She hung up, then dialed another number. Tanisha, her real friend. The one she had been friends with since high school. It's me. You free right now? I need to talk to you. Urgently. Samara, what's wrong? Your voice sounds weird. Is everything okay? No, not okay. I'm heading to my parents right now. Can you meet me there? Of course, I'm walking out the door. Samara, what happened? You'll find out soon. Just get ready. It's bad news. Samara put the phone in her pocket, got up from the bench, walked back to the car. The flash drive still lay on the seat. She picked it up, squeezed it in her hand. This was her map, her weapon, and she was going to use it. Her parents lived on the other side of the city, in an old apartment complex where Samara spent her entire childhood. Second-floor unit with a balcony facing the courtyard. When she pulled up, Mama was already standing by the entrance, hugging herself with her arms. It was chilly outside, and she had run out in a house coat. Samara, baby, what happened? Mama rushed to her as soon as Samara got out of the car. Pop said you sounded upset. Did you and Yovan fight? Samara hugged her mother, buried her face in her shoulder, and here, for the first time all day, she allowed herself to relax. Tears gushed again, but now they weren't tears of shock, but tears of pain and resentment. She cried and Mama stroked her back, whispering, "Hush, baby, hush. Everything will be all right. Mama, it's huge." Samara squeezed out through sobs. I don't know how to survive this. Let's go inside, you tell us. Let's go, sweetie. They went up to the apartment. Pops was sitting in the kitchen at the table. When he saw Samara, tear-stained, pale, he immediately stood up, frowned. What did he do? Pops asked grimly. Did that Yovan of yours hurt you? Worse, Pops. Samara sat on a chair, wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Much worse. The doorbell rang. Tanisha. Mama went to open it, and a minute later her friend walked into the kitchen, petite, round-faced, with a short haircut. She worked as an accountant at a small firm, was married, 2 kids. The most reliable person Samara knew. Samara, you're scaring me, Tanisha said, taking off her jacket. What went down? Samara took the flash drive out of her purse, put it on the table. There's a recording here from the restaurant security camera. You all need to watch this. Pops brought a laptop, turned it on. Samara inserted the drive, opened the file. They all 4 sat around the table looking at the screen. First came the picture without sound, how Yovan and Lanice entered the supply room, kissed. Mama gasped, covering her mouth with her hand.
Kissed.
Mama gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. Tanisha cursed under her breath. Pops turned pale, clenched his fists. Then the sound turned on. The conversation about the apartment, about the plan, about the divorce, about how easy it was to make the naive teacher fall in love. When the recording ended, silence stood in the kitchen. Mama was crying, buried in a handkerchief. Tanisha hugged Samara by the shoulders, pressing her tightly. Pops sat, jaw clenched, staring at the wall. His face was like stone. I'll kill him, Pops said quietly. I'll find that bastard and kill him. Pops, don't. Samara put a hand on his shoulder. Don't ruin your life over him. He's not worth it. How dare he, her father hissed. How dare he treat you like that? I trusted him. I shook his hand at the wedding, called him son-in-law. I know, Pops. Tanisha stood up, paced the kitchen, then turned sharply. Samara, is he home right now? That Yovan? Yeah, texted me he got back from work. And what are you going to do, go back, tell him everything to his face? Samara shook her head. No, if I go back now and say it, he'll start denying it. Or, on the contrary, he'll confess but beg, cry, promise that everything will change.
I know men like that.
They always find words. But She fell silent, looking at the flash drive. I want him to understand what it's like to be humiliated. I want him to feel exactly what I felt today. Tanisha sat down next to her, took her hand. You want revenge?
Yes.
Samara looked her in the eyes. I do. They laughed at me, Tanisha. Made plans on how they'd deceive me, take the condo, and toss me out. Thought I was an idiot who wouldn't catch on. I want them to regret it. Mama raised her head, wiped her tears. Samara, baby, I understand you're hurting, but revenge, is that right? Mama, he stole 6 months of my life. He stole my faith in people. He wanted to steal my apartment, the only thing I have left from Grandma. I can't just walk away and forget. She's right, Pop said. Let that scumbag get what he deserves. Tanisha thought for a moment, then nodded. Okay, if you decided, I'm with you. What did you come up with? Samara straightened up, wiped the last tears. Everything inside her was still burning, but now it wasn't just the fire of pain, it was determination. I want to gather all the guests, everyone who was at the wedding, throw a second-day party, invite them to the same restaurant, and show them this recording. Tanisha whistled. Damn, you serious? Absolutely. Let everyone see who he really is. Let everyone find out what kind of friend Lainey's really is. Let them be ashamed in front of the people they deceived.
But he'll be there too, Mama said.
Yovan, he's your husband.
He'll come.
Exactly. Samara clenched her fists. I want him to be there, to watch everything crumble, to see the guests' faces when they realize the truth. Pops nodded approvingly. That's a plan. A good plan. I'll help you. What needs to be done? Samara thought, then began to speak, building the plan in her head. First, need to arrange it with the restaurant, with Mr. Sterling, the manager. He already knows the whole situation. He'll help me. Need to rent the hall for the evening after tomorrow, Saturday. Tell them it's a continuation of the wedding. And the money? Mama asked. Renting a hall costs a pretty penny. I have savings. And anyway, it won't be a full banquet. Just set tables, light buffet. The main thing is to gather the people. Tanisha took out her phone, started typing something. What next? Invitations to guests? Yes, need to call everyone who was at the wedding. Say that Yovan and I want to continue the celebration. Invite everyone again. Most will come. Free food and drinks. Lainey's will definitely come. She loves a party. Yovan won't say no either. What if he suspects something? Mama asked cautiously. He won't. He's sure I don't know anything. To him, I'm still that same naive Samara who believes his every word. Tanisha scoffed. Well, that's his mistake. Underestimated you. Exactly. Samara felt confidence strengthening inside her. Now, the technical part. Need a projector in the restaurant. A big screen.
Mr. Sterling can help with that.
I'll say I want to show the guests a video from the wedding. The photographer edited a reel.
No one will be surprised.
And when will you turn on the reel recording?
Pops asked.
Right in the middle of the evening. Yes, when everyone gathers, eats, relaxes. I'll get up, say a few words, and then turn on the video on the big screen so everyone sees, with sound. Lord, Mama whispered, it's going to be a shock for everyone. Let it be, Samara said firmly. Let everyone know the truth. Tanisha looked at her with respect. You know, I always thought you were too soft. But now I see. When you need to be, you know how to be strong. Samara smiled crookedly. I'm just tired of being the one everyone considers the quiet one. The proper teacher girl who won't offend anyone. They offended me, and I'm not going to be silent. They sat in the kitchen for another hour, discussing details. Pops wrote everything down in a notebook. Tanisha made a guest list from memory. Mama brewed tea, served cookies, although no one really ate. Samara felt the plan taking shape, becoming real, and it gave her strength. When it got dark, she called the restaurant. Otis Sterling picked up after the third ring. Mrs. Hayes, how are you? I've been thinking about you all day.
Thank you.
Samara spoke calmly, confidently. Mr. Sterling, I need your help. I want to rent your hall after tomorrow, Saturday evening. Throw a second day of the wedding. Saturday came faster than Samara expected. She spent 2 days at home, playing the role of the happy young wife. Smiled at Jovan at breakfast, asked how his day went, cooked dinner. He didn't notice anything, was just like always. Kissed her on the cheek, told stories from work, made plans for the weekend. Samara looked at him and didn't recognize him. How had she not seen it before, not felt the falseness in his every word, in every gesture? On Friday evening, he asked, "Listen, is this second-day party tomorrow definitely happening? Maybe cancel? I'm kind of tired." Samara froze at the stove, stirring soup. Her heart skipped a beat.
Not this.
Just don't let him refuse. Jovan, come on, she said, trying to speak lightly. I already invited everyone, paid the restaurant. Everyone is waiting. Let's not cancel. It's just one evening. He shrugged. All right, one evening. Right, one evening. Samara exhaled with relief. Everything is going according to plan. On Saturday morning, she got up early. Jovan was still sleeping, sprawled over half the bed. She dressed quietly, took her purse, and left the apartment. Drove to the restaurant. Mr. Sterling was already on site, directing waiters who were setting tables. Good morning, Mrs. Hayes. He walked up to her, wiping his hands with a towel. Everything is ready. Tables for 40 people. Buffet menu as agreed. Projector installed. Screen 2. Samara looked at the center of the hall. A large white screen on a tripod stood there. Next to it, on a small table, the projector. Cords stretched to an outlet in the corner.
Thank you.
She handed him the flash drive. Here's the recording. Can you check that everything works? Mr. Sterling took the drive, inserted it into the projector, turned it on. An image of the supply room froze on the screen, that exact moment when Jovan and Lanice were kissing. Samara turned away. Looking at it again was painful, although not like the first time. The pain had dulled, giving way to cold determination. Everything works, the manager said, turning off the projector. When you nod to me, I'll turn it on.
Check the sound, too. Loud.
Everyone will hear. Okay. I'll walk up to the screen around 8 o'clock. That's when you turn it on. He nodded, handed the flash drive back to her. Stay strong, Mrs. Hayes. You're doing the right thing. Samara returned home by lunch. Jovan was sitting on the sofa, watching football on TV. Where you been? He asked without looking away from the screen. Went to the store, bought groceries for the week. Lying came to her easier and easier. Strange how quickly she learned to lie. Before, Samara always told the truth, didn't know how to hide, to pretend. But when you get betrayed, when you find out that your whole life is a lie, learning to lie turns out to be easier than easy. Your whole life is a lie. Learning to lie turns out to be easier than easy. By 6 in the evening, they started getting ready. Samara put on the same dress as the wedding. White, simple, knee-length. Jovan was surprised. Why the same one? You could have worn something else. I want everything to be like that evening, she answered, fastening her earrings. It's beautiful. He shrugged, pulled on his suit, that same deep blue one. When he was tying his tie in front of the mirror, Samara looked at him and thought, last time. The last time you stand in my apartment in my life. They arrived at the restaurant at 10 to 7. Guests had already started trickling in. Jovan's parents stood by the entrance. Miss Viola hugged Samara. Samara, sweetie, look at you, so beautiful. How nice that you arranged a second day. We are so happy. Samara smiled, nodded, greeted everyone. Aunt Vera, colleagues from school, Jovan's friends, everyone was cheerful, lively. The tables groaned with food, cold cuts, salads, hot dishes. Waiters poured wine, champagne. Tanisha arrived as one of the first, immediately walked up to Samara. How you holding up? She asked quietly. Okay, holding it together. Good girl, I'm with you. They hugged. Samara felt her hands shaking. Tanisha squeezed her palm tightly. It's gonna work. Don't be scared. At 7:10, Lanice appeared, tall in a tight black dress on high heels, hair loose, makeup bright. She walked in, looked around the hall, waved her hand at Samara. Hey girl, she walked up, pecked her on the cheek. You really did it. Second day party. Go ahead. Samara smiled. Glad you came, Linnies.
Come in.
Sit wherever you want. Linnies walked to the table, sat next to Yovan, whispered something in his ear. He laughed, patted her on the shoulder. Samara watched them from afar and felt everything inside tightening.
How dare they?
How dare they sit here, smile, pretend that everything is okay. By 7:30, all the guests had gathered. 40 people at the tables, conversations, laughter, clinking glasses. Samara walked between tables, socializing, accepting congratulations. Yovan sat in the center, telling another story from the auto shop. Everyone around laughed. He was in his element, king of the evening.
Just a little more. Just a little bit.
Samara walked up to Otis Sterling standing by the bar.
Ready?
Ready. She nodded, took a deep breath. It's time. Samara walked to the center of the hall, stood next to the screen, raised her hand, attracting attention. Gradually, the conversations died down. The guests turned to her. Dear friends, Samara began, trying to speak loudly and confidently. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for sharing our joy on the day Yovan and I got married. It was a special evening. The guests nodded. Someone raised a glass. Yovan smiled, looking at her. I want to show you something, Samara continued. A video from our wedding. Otis Sterling, the restaurant manager, was double-checking the security camera footage and discovered one moment that I think everyone should see. Yovan frowned. Lainey's froze, glass halfway to her lips. Silence hung in the hall. Samara nodded to Otis Sterling. He turned on the projector. On the big screen, the picture appeared. The supply room, black and white recording, time 9:43 p.m. On the screen, the door opened. Lainey's entered, then Yovan. They closed the door, looked at each other, and kissed. Gasps echoed in the hall. Someone covered their mouth with a hand. Miss Viola, Jovan's mother, turned pale. Samara's father clenched his fists, staring at the screen. Yovan jumped up from his chair. Samara, what is this? Turn it off immediately. But Samara stood motionless, looking at the screen. And on the screen, Yovan and Linnies sat on the sofa, smoked, talked. And then the sound turned on. Thought I wasn't going to make it. Watching you dance with her all night, kissing her. Damn, Yovan, my nerves almost snapped. Linnies' voice rang out through the whole hall. The guests froze, not believing their ears. Come on now, just hold on a little longer. Everything is going according to plan. Jovan's voice, clear, recognizable. According to plan. And what about me? When she whispers to me, thank you for being here, bestie. It makes me want to throw up. Lainey's on the screen laughed, and this laugh echoed through the hall. Guests started looking at each other, whispering. Someone stood up to see the screen better. Don't throw up. You're an actress. Played it perfectly. Yovan tried to walk to the projector, but Tanisha and Samara's father blocked his path. Stop right there, son-in-law, Pop said in an icy voice. Watch it to the end. What the hell? This is some mistake. Shut up and watch. Pop shoved him back toward the table. On the screen, Lainey's asked, how much longer do we have to play this comedy? When are you finally going to divorce her? Dead silence hung in the hall. Even breathing couldn't be heard. Everyone looked at the screen, then at Yovan, then back at the screen. Don't rush. We got to do everything smart. First, she puts my name on the deed. Then we wait 3 or 4 months, so there's no suspicion. And then we can divorce. The condo stays with me and you, and I will live it up like we wanted. Miss Viola screamed, covering her face with her hands. Elijah, Jovan's father, stood up, looking at his son with an expression like he was seeing him for the first time. Darius, what is this? Whispered Ms. Viola. What have you done? Yovan stood in the middle of the hall, white as a sheet. His lips moved, but there were no words. Lainey's tried to get up, grabbed her purse, but Tanisha blocked her path. Sit, Tanisha said, harshly. You're watching this to the end. On the screen, the conversation continued. What if she doesn't sign it over?
She will.
I already started working on her, telling her, let's put everything in both our names. She thinks it's about equality in marriage. Gullible fool. Give it 2 weeks, and she'll run to the county clerk herself. Lainey's on the screen laughed. Damn, you're a genius. Seriously? Making a teacher fall in love with you turned out to be easier than easy. Samara's colleagues from school gasped. Mrs. Hollingsworth, the vice principal, stood up, looking at Yovan with such hatred that he stepped back. Well, why not? She was lonely, no man, works at the school for pennies, lives a boring life. Here I come, good-looking, attentive. She fell right into my hands. People started standing up in the hall. Someone cursed out loud. Jovan's friends looked at him with disgust. One of them, Marcus, whom Yovan worked with at the shop, shook his head. Man, you a whole clown. On the screen, Yovan pulled Lainey's closer, kissed her neck. You know I love only you. Samara is just a way to solve our housing problems. She has a condo downtown. We sell it, buy ourselves something nice, and live off the rest. Elijah, Jovan's father, something nice and live off the rest. Elijah, Jovan's father, slowly walked up to his son. His face was red, hands shaking. You scammed that girl? Married her for an apartment? Yovan opened his mouth, but his father didn't let him say a word. He swung and struck his son across the face. The sound of the slap rang out like a gunshot. Yovan recoiled, grabbed his cheek. Pop, what are you doing? I don't know you, Elijah hissed. You aren't my son. Miss Viola was crying, holding her head in her hands. Samara's mom walked up to her, hugged her. Both women stood watching the screen where the recording was coming to an end. Hugged her. Both women stood watching the screen where the recording was coming to an end. I gotta go back, or Tanisha will start looking for me.
Go.
I'll come out in a couple of minutes. Okay. Love you. Love you too. Last kiss. Lainey's left. Yovan remained alone. The recording ended. The screen went dark. Samara stood next to the screen, looking at the hall. Everyone was looking at her, some with sympathy, some with shock, some with admiration. She slowly raised her left hand, took off her wedding ring, walked to the table where Yovan sat. He looked at her, mouth open, unable to utter a word. Samara put the ring on the table in front of him, quietly, calmly.
Here's your ring, Yovan.
You aren't my husband anymore. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. You won't get the condo. You won't get anything except disgrace. He tried to grab her hand. Samara, wait, it's not what you think. I can explain. She snatched her hand away as if from fire. Don't you dare touch me. Don't you. She snatched her hand away as if from fire. Don't you dare touch me.
Don't you dare come near me. Get out of my apartment today.
If you don't get your stuff in an hour, I'm throwing it in the trash. Samara, please. Shut up. She raised her voice. You stole 6 months of my life. You played with me like a toy. You and her. Samara turned to Lainey's. This one laughed at me behind my back. You thought I was an idiot, that I wouldn't find out anything. But I found out, and now everyone knows who you really are. Lainey's jumped up, grabbed her purse. I'm not listening to this, she hissed through her teeth. Oh, you're definitely going to listen. Tanisha stood in front of her. You want to leave?
Go.
But everyone here now knows what kind of person you are. A friend who sleeps with someone else's husband, who makes plans on how to steal a friend's apartment. Go, Lainey's.
Run.
But remember, everyone will know about this. I'll tell everyone personally. Lainey's turned pale, looked back at the guests. Everyone looked at her with contempt. She turned around and ran out of the hall, heels clicking. The door slammed behind her. Yovan still stood by the table, confused, broken. His mother walked up to him, looking through tears. How could you, Darius? How could you do that to this girl? He was silent. His father grabbed him by the shoulder, spun him around. Pack your things. Move out of Samara's apartment and never show your face in front of her again. You hear me? But Pop, you hear me? Yovan nodded, head down. Elijah pushed him away. Get out immediately. Yovan walked to the exit. The guests parted like he was plagued. No one said a word to him. He walked out of the hall, and the door closed behind him. Samara stood in the middle of the hall, feeling the tension of the last days leaving behind emptiness and fatigue. Pops walked up, hugged her by the shoulders. "It's over, baby girl. It's all over." She pressed against him, allowing herself to finally relax. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but now they were tears of relief. "I handled it, Pops. You did good. I'm proud of you." Guests started coming up to her one by one. Colleagues from school hugged her, spoke words of support. Mrs. Hollingsworth, the vice principal, took her hand. "Samara, you are a real hero. Not every woman would decide to do that. You showed everyone not to mess with you." Joven's friends also came up, apologized, said they didn't know he was like that. "We thought he was a solid guy," Marcus said. "If we knew he was plotting something like that, we would have handled him ourselves." Aunt Vera cried and hugged Samara. "My poor girl. How did you survive all this? But good on you for not staying silent. Let everyone know the truth." Ms. Viola approached last. Her face was tear-stained, eyes red. "Samara, forgive me. Forgive me for my son. I didn't know he was capable of such a thing. I'm so ashamed." Samara hugged her. "Ms. Viola, it's not your fault. You are good people. It's just your son.
He chose the wrong path.
I don't claim him anymore. He's dead to me." Samara nodded silently. Ms. Viola hugged her one more time and left with her husband. Gradually, the guests began to disperse. Some lingered, talked, supported Samara. Some left quietly, digesting what they had seen. By 10 in the evening, only Samara, her parents, Tanisha, and Otis Sterling remained in the hall. "Thank you," Samara said to the manager. "I wouldn't have managed without you. Don't mention it. I'm glad it ended exactly like this." Justice was served. They walked out of the restaurant. It was cold outside. The wind was blowing. Samara stopped by the car, looked at the sky. Stars shimmered in the darkness, distant and indifferent. "Mama, Pops, let's go to my place. Need to check if he took his stuff."
Of course, baby.
"Let's go." They arrived at the apartment 20 minutes later. Samara went up to the 4th floor, opened the door. It was quiet and dark in the hallway. She turned on the light. Joven's shoes were gone. In the bedroom, an empty closet, his clothes taken. In the bathroom, no razor, no toothbrush.
He left.
Samara walked into the living room, sat on the sofa. Parents sat nearby. Tanisha brought tea.
"How are you?"
Mama asked quietly. "I don't know," Samara answered honestly. "Seems easier, but it still hurts." "It'll pass," Pop said. "Time heals." Samara nodded. She believed him. Someday, it really would pass. But right now, the pain was still fresh, sharp, like an open wound. She spent the weekend with her parents and Tanisha, talking, reminiscing, laughing, and crying. Tanisha, talking, reminiscing, laughing, and crying. On Monday, Samara went to work. The kids in class met her with joyful shouts, hugged her, showed drawings. She smiled at them, answered questions, taught lessons. Life went on. On Wednesday, she filed for divorce. The lawyer said the process would take a month, no more. Jovan didn't object, signed all the papers without arguments. The apartment remained with Samara. It was recorded in her name before the marriage, and Jovan had no rights to it. A month passed, then 2, then 3. Autumn came, then winter. Samara worked, met with friends, visited her parents. In the evenings, she sat at home, read books, watched movies. Gradually, the pain didn't disappear completely. A scar remained, but living became easier. One day in March, she was sitting in the kitchen with friends Tanisha and Mrs. Hollingsworth from school, drinking tea, eating pie, chatting about everything in the world. "You know, Samara," Tanisha said, "I respect you so much for what you did back then. Not every woman would dare." "Come on," Samara smiled, just didn't want to stay silent. "No, really. You showed everyone that you shouldn't tolerate betrayal, that you have to fight for yourself." Mrs. Hollingsworth nodded. "Agreed. And, after that story, I realized something myself, that you can't trust blindly, that you always have to keep your eyes open." Samara took a sip of tea, looked out the window. Behind the glass, snow was falling, white fluffy. Spring hadn't arrived yet, but was already felt in the air. Soon it would get warmer. The ice would melt. Buds would blossom. New life. You know what's the strangest thing? Samara said quietly. I'm grateful to him. What? Tanisha almost choked on her tea. To who? Yovan? Yeah. Grateful that he showed me the truth. That he taught me not to be naive. That he forced me to become stronger. If not for the story, I would have remained a quiet teacher who is afraid to stand up for herself. And now I know that I can. That I can handle anything. Tanisha hugged her. You did good, Samara. You're the best. They sat in the kitchen, chatting, laughing. Snow fell outside the window. Samara felt free. Free from lies, from betrayal, from the person who tried to use her. She was alone again, but now it didn't scare her. On the contrary, solitude seemed honest, clean. And ahead was a whole life. New meetings, new people, new opportunities. Maybe someday she would trust someone again, but now she would be more careful, wiser, stronger. And that was the most important lesson she took from this whole story. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story and which city are you listening from? Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend.
There's so much more on my channel.
Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love.